than somebody like Unc or Polite or something like that. I think they treat it like shit. But y'all, I'll say, will have a level of sincerity as far as the Kemet goes. So I say all that to say,
we support them though. I'm not gonna let you do that, but we support.
We do, but let him finish.
Okay. Just for the camera, just to let you know.
We don't want that we're insulting somebody.
I'm insulting. If anybody want to know, I'm insulting. All right, they're not insulting. But what I'm saying is that why did if it's not real, why are they renovating it with temples? Why do they renovate it with temples? Why do they have the mummified dogs? They found over, I said 1 million. When I looked it up, it was like 8 million mummified dogs. Why do they have all of them? Cats, whatever you want, every animal. I mean, y'all worshipped a lot of damn animals that y'all was saying were different spirits. That's why you got the ostrich head, etc. So my point is, if it's to be taken as a principle, are you saying that it's a man-made religion? That's like, I guess, 1 and 1A. So the first thing is, why would they have the temples and the mummies? And then second, if it's just a principle, is it a man-made religion that they saw and observed and then created their own ideology?
I think both of us are going to want to do that. Okay. No, you got to go first because you haven't spoken. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Okay, Captain. Shalom. Hotep. Okay, I'm not against you. I'm just gonna. I'm not gonna try to change your mind. I'm simply gonna expand your
y'all
mind.
Say that all the time. I don't get offended by nothing.
Okay, no, that, and I know.
Come at me.
No.
Right.
First of all, the reason why we built the temples at the times that we did is because we could. What does that mean?
Bring it out, Betsy. Bring it out, baby.
We had the science, right? And the science directed the spirituality, because it had to make sense. For example, all of the temples have a scientific purpose. For example, the pyramids, right? They had a scientific purpose, right? Many of the temples reflected just time, the sun rising, the sun falling. Some of the temples resurrected the seasons, right? The different solstices that are coming in, right? Some of them talked about the cycles of the universe, going all the way to Nabta Playa. So the simple fact of it is, we did it because we could, because we understood. The problem with the religions, right? And we'll talk to see if Nile Valley is a religion.
Still back then, right?
Right.
Not now. Okay.
No, I'm back then because you asked the question. Right. Is that when we looked at Re, which is the sun, it's not just a principle, which we gave the principles to, right? It has a scientific basis. The problem with religion is that they attribute all of these things to a God, a creator, and stops you from thinking about the science. Now, the problem with the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, right? We have to now look at where does their science come from? What we find is that their science comes from when they enter into Kemet.
Bring it out, Reggie.
That is when their science begins. And some of that science is very, very similar to what they learned from the people of Kemet, right? And I don't think that you can deny that. Now that's science. Now we get to expanding it to religion and text. Well, we have to take science, and sometimes it becomes religion, and it becomes mythos because we use teaching tools to describe it to the rest of the world. You use teaching tools in your book to describe things to the rest of the world. For example, Abraham, right? Or how do you call him?
Abraham is fine.
You call Abraham, right? The fact of the matter is he's a teaching tool because we really don't know. We think that he comes from Ur, which is in Iran, and then he moves over and he goes to Sumer. We don't know what period, right? But in ancient Kemet, many of the people that we talk about, we know exactly what period they're in. So they're less teaching tools and more real. So that becomes so I just wanted to answer your question first. Now, yes, we do a lot of mythology. Some of the mythology makes sense to us. I'm a Nile Valley African who's a scientist. I'm not a Nile Valley African religious, right? So the religious part that don't make sense to me, I look at the period, the people, what were they thinking, who else was involved, and I try to find out if what they said makes sense. So I don't pray to any of these deities, but I find that they all have scientific principles that make sense. Okay.
Do you understand anything he said?
He didn't answer my question either.
Wow.
What wait, let's
What he did,
Give him the mic. Give him
what
the
he
mic.
did was,
okay.
what he did was tell me the temples was resurrected for scientific principles.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Yes.
My question is,
Yes.
if they created Anubis and they're saying that it's mythological, why did they resurrect a temple to Anubis, have mummified dogs to Anubis? I ain't asking for the scientific, the lunar cycles and the sun go up and down and stuff like that. And then he brought up Abraham, which is the typical banter that I let me what? No, don't you didn't interrupt Reggie.
No. Why are they mummifying real
A
dogs?
dog, if they thank you.
I got you.
That's my premise. And then they do the usual Kemetic two-step when they start mentioning the Abrahams and stuff like that. Abraham, whether I won't even debate the whole argument of whether he existed or not, because I'm not debating the Bible. We're talking about Kemet. But Abraham is identified as a living man. He has a mother, he has a father. Anubis is identified as a deity, as an entity, which they're telling me is mythological.
Right.
That's what they're telling me in this time. Right. But back then, they had a temple. You can go to the temple of Anubis. Bring your mummified dog. When they believe when you die, you go meet this cat. You go meet this cat with the feather, which is my eye. Now, I could be wording it wrong, but if I ever had to bring it out line for line, it's not a problem. But no, hold on. You can't because when I asked you on my radio show and you said you was gonna let them answer. So if none of this is real, why did they treat it as if it was real?
That's